My personal feelings on androgyny. Why I love it. I'm a 90s kid. Growing up, there was an interesting, vibrant, and diverse LGBT scene. It was a space where you could be yourself, love who you love, and the only goal was just that. At a very young age, I learned that I was bisexual. I was sexually attracted to both men and women, but my attraction goes a bit beyond that. I absolutely love when a man has long hair or feels settled within himself enough to wear earrings or nail polish. I love it when a man is able to embody some feminine aspect of himself. So many of the kinds of guys I find attractive usually are gay. Story of my life. I keep trying. With my attraction to women, it's a similar thing. When a woman subverts traditional expectations by embodying masculine traits, the butches with the short hair, the dykes, the studs with the locks, it's just all so sexy to me. Looking back on this, I think it's the rebellion they wore. There was a deep reassurance, a stability that emanated from the kinds of people who knew others would judge them based on their appearance, but expressed themselves anyway. By doing what felt right to themselves, felt comfortable. That despite the shade, they insisted on still being who they were. It was unabashed authenticity and a deep self knowing, which then resonated out to the world through actions, mannerisms, and personal style. And that energy is everything to me. How the OG movement set the stage. Back then, being part of the LGBT community meant that you went against the norm, not because you wanted the drama, but because you were seeking to express and live your life as your real self. No more struggle busing it in a hetero marriage that you're desperately trying to appreciate yet don't want. No more dressing in gender normative, quote unquote, safe clothing to keep the heteros comfortable. No more fitting neatly into boxes. Instead, you vowed to never be put into a box ever again. You fought to be seen as human and that people would get to know you for you, as defined by you, and that others would see you as a whole human being. The fact that you wore a skirt sometimes didn't make you any less of a man. Or the fact that you liked women and hated male attention didn't make you any less of a woman. The feminist and gay rights movements of the 80s paved the way for this. The LGBT rights movement was about subverting gender roles. It was exposing how useless they were and that it didn't matter if you were born female or male. You could live and do and be whoever you wanted. Women could build planes, men could be into fashion, and despite that, we were still whole and healthy people. We could be in love with the same sex, or we could swing both ways, and we still deserve to have our dignity intact, just like every other human being. You were breaking stereotypes. That was the message of the LGBT rights movement. How that's changed in modern society. All of that effort got reversed, and it seems that no one sees the irony of this. In this modern day, we are saying that if you are a man that's in touch with his emotions and perhaps likes wearing lipstick, that he isn't actually a man at all. He's gotta be trans. And if you're a woman who can't stand long hair, you must want to lop your tits off too. Nowadays, if someone colors just outside of the gender role lines, they must be trans. And even trans have started out utterly cemented in gender roles, a binary. You're either a man or a woman, and they flip between them. It was still heteronormative and completely married to traditional gender roles. But now we have gender fluid, non binary, and all other kinds of fun caricatures. Also, all defined on the very same gender roles that the feminists and gay rights activists of the past fought so hard to obliterate.
You can't define yourself strictly in terms of what you aren't. So, non binary and gender non conforming simply doesn't really make sense. You can simply be gender non-conforming, and more power to you for expressing yourself. And you can transition to the gender that goes against your genitals if you so desire. And I wish you the best of luck with that. But I see no point in identifying as anything with non in the title. When it comes to gender, we live in a binary world, as there are simply two sexes, even though there's a lot of baggage that comes along with being born as one or the other, which might not always feel appropriate to the individual. However, if some of that baggage is bugging you, it doesn't have to control you. It is completely possible and actually rather easy to simply be somebody that challenges the norms of how a man or woman is expected to behave in society. And if you are momentarily confused about your gender but aren't committed to fully transitioning, I have a quick tip regarding how to make things easiest for those around you. Instead of coming up with complicated pronouns and going on and on about how you feel inside as if anybody really cares, which I promise that they don't, instead of going through all of that mess, just look at your genitals and they'll tell you pretty clearly who you are and what norms you will be defying if you choose to defy them.
The differences may not be that clear to you, so I'd like to go into detail of what makes the two movements so different. The difference between OG and modern LGBT. Raising the whole versus suppressing the them. OG LGBT was about uplifting the community and therefore society. By gaining rights for the movement, we freed the rest of the world from tunnel vision. It was a pursuit of love. We never wanted to exclude the normal world, to see them as our adversaries, for the normal world was our sisters, brothers, parents, cousins, coworkers, friends. You were a part of the whole, and your focus on activism was to create a sense of oneness with others, a unity. Modern LGBT is about stomping down others in pursuit of the community being on top. By gaining more rights for the movement, we actually silence others and force our opinion on the unsuspecting man. It's a pursuit of hate. It embodies separation and, in fact, encourages it. It's duality consciousness, an either or, a vast rift between us and them. This also enables a dehumanizing of the other. The them then becomes something. And if them is something, now they're not human. And that's where we get these conversations about we are able to assassinate someone if they don't agree with us.
If it feels like there's something off about the way social movements have been progressing in recent years, it's because there is. It's because they're not actually progressing, they're regressing. What we're observing is a shift from an incline in social consciousness, okay, over time, to a decline in consciousness. We went from these movements that were originated by these grassroots organic efforts that were based on the pulling up of those who needed to be pulled up. It was about raising consciousness. It was about acceptance. It was about awareness. It was about compassion. It was about equality. That focus has since been shifted from the pulling up to the takedown effect. It has transmuted to this desire to take down those who have been earmarked for takedown. And those who have been earmarked for takedown are those who are perceived as belonging to some privileged class, some oppressor class.
Self-love versus self-escape. OG LGBT was all about learning to be comfortable with who we are. We saw ourselves as humans worthy of connection and sternly but lovingly challenged society to see us the same way. It stemmed from being vulnerable with oneself about who you are, being honest with yourself about your inner thoughts and feelings, and then coming to an undeniable conclusion. And with that, you exude the energy simply of the honest truth that you've concluded. You own who you are and love yourself for it, despite if anyone else on this planet returns that love or not. Modern LGBT is all about not being comfortable with yourself, and instead of going through that very difficult process of healing and self discovery, you lop off the parts of yourself that you hate, slap on both physical and emotional band aids, and call yourself brave for doing so. You literally run away from yourself for fear of judgment. In fact, you can't even handle judgment from the external world because there's no love within yourself for your own self. So, not getting it from the outer world would just be devastating. Fact versus ideology. OG LGBT was all about shredding boxes, to say fuck you to stereotypes and only keep what's real. Being gay or bi was simply just a fact. It said nothing about your identity, who you were as a person, your politics, your hobbies, your clothing, your fashion sense, absolutely nothing. You didn't even have to be a part of the scene to be gay. You just were. Everything was an invitation to learn about the real, complex, multifaceted person, just as all humans are. Modern LGBT cranks out more boxes and badges faster than the eye can blink. It's all ideology and doublespeak, and it's all conflated assumptions of how a person is supposed to be. In fact, every box, every label that they have is an ideology in itself, each distinct markers of the specific flavor of oppression they claim to represent in the oppression hierarchy that is woke activism. In essence, the LGB has no ideological expectations whatsoever, but the TQ plus is all ideological expectations and nothing else.
The problem for the far left, and quite honestly, in many ways, the far right, is that a whole person, somebody who knows who they are, is not easy to manipulate. Someone who knows who they are has a stable center. They have values, they have confidence. They can disagree with a group without feeling like they're losing part of themselves. They don't need constant validation from strangers or from the group of people that they constantly interact with. But once your identity becomes fragmented into these dozens of separate categories, something changes. Now you're constantly asking yourself, like, am I privileged here? Am I oppressed here? Should I be speaking? Should I stay quiet? Am I taking up too much space? Do I even belong in this conversation? Instead of building confidence in your beliefs and your thoughts and ideas, you're constantly monitoring yourself. And people who are constantly second guessing themselves, like I said before, are much easier to control and manipulate. You can't think for yourself if you don't know yourself. If somebody convinces you that your primary existence or identity isn't just human or innately Ariel, but rather a collection of all these social, economic, and hierarchical systems, then your emotional stability and mental well-being becomes tied to those categories. Criticism of one label or one identity feels like them attacking your entire existence. Disagreement becomes personal. Politics become personal. Everything becomes personal. That creates the constant need for validation, and whoever controls that validation or affirmation gains enormous influence.
Self-assuredness versus narcissistic tendencies. OG LGBT was rested within themselves. It was all about simply existing in an authentic way, and that's the right they fought for. Being able to marry, to love, to express themselves in an authentic way. Their root assurance comes from an inward focused reflection on themselves. And if they felt unstable, correcting that through inner work. In the same sense, their validation also comes from within, further strengthening their sense of self. This leads to a calm, balanced energy as a stasis. Modern LGBT are not rested within themselves at all. In fact, they have narcissistic tendencies, not only needing external validation, but demanding it, and then punishing those who don't provide. There's an incredible sense of entitlement with an undercurrent of deep insecurity. All reflection is outward focused, ready to target the next scapegoat as the fault of their woes. Every modicum of quote unquote activism is really there to feed the ego. It's frantic, chaotic energy that doesn't care about who gets destroyed in its wake. There certainly is a lack of empathy and carelessness in this energy.
If dissent leads to social punishment, then conformity increases, and open conversations becomes much harder. That's when movements start to radicalize, and that's when culture war conflicts start intensifying. Because in many cases, these conflicts aren't really driven by deeply reasoned ideological disagreements. They're driven by psychological needs, the need for belonging, the need for moral status, the need for recognition, and the need for certainty in a confusing world. And once you start seeing the world through that lens, a lot of what's happening online begins to make a lot more sense. Lately, I've become much more interested in understanding the psychology behind these dynamics, things like manipulation, narcissism, trauma, identity, and why people get pulled into extreme thinking in the first place. Because if you want to navigate a chaotic political environment without constantly feeling drained by it, you need to understand the psychology driving the behavior. Otherwise, you're just reacting to the surface level conflict instead of understanding what's actually happening underneath it.
The empowerment dynamic versus the drama triangle. OG LGBT certainly challenged common society and traditional views. It certainly was a counterculture movement. But instead of seeing themselves as victims, when at that time they certainly could be deemed as such, they instead furthered the dynamic of empowerment, coaching others and creating the kind of community they'd want to see expanded into the real world. Everyone was an equal, and the work was about getting everyone else to remove prejudice so they could realize that equality. They wanted everyone to be on the same page. Modern LGBT, instead of challenging society, blame society for their woes. In a time where most LGBT individuals are not being attacked and are not victims, they shout victimhood from the rooftops incessantly. They certainly see themselves as weak and the cis majority as their persecutors. They feel like the privileged, quote unquote privileged, should be the rescuers. But alas, if the rescuers don't fall in line, now the activists view them as an additional prosecutor. And once those being attacked start weaponizing their oppression status, they then quickly emerge as persecutors, and on the cycle goes.
It's got its own traps built into it. I think the most obvious trap is, first of all, if you're the victim, well,
Helpless.
You're helpless. You can't do anything until somebody swoops in and saves you. And if you're the villain, well, being the villain or seeing the world in terms of villainy is a pretty black and white way of seeing another human being or even a situation. I think it takes out of consideration lots of elements where nobody sees themselves as the villain for the most part. Sometimes we do, but the person who you see as the villain is probably not seeing themselves as the villain in that situation. And so why aren't they seeing themselves as the villain? Is it because they're totally blinded by their villainy, or is it because no human being is quite that simple?
Yeah.
And then the biggest problem with a hero is that heroes are pretty egotistical. They like to think of themselves as oh so awesome, and they don't really allow the quote-unquote victim an opportunity to solve their challenges on their own. So there's a lot of built-in problems with the drama triangle. And if you are
in a situation where you're like maybe say dealing with your mate or somebody close to you, and you have a tendency to overlay this model, superimpose this model over reality, then in any given interaction, which position are you taking and which position are they taking? So in a fight, are they always the villain? Are you expecting them to be the hero that swoops in and they're not? That's the other piece of it, is that when we've dubbed them part of this triangle and they're not meeting our expectations, then suddenly they become the villain. In particular, if we're a victim and we're looking for a hero. If the person doesn't come in as a hero, well, now they're the villain. and if we were the victim, and in our victimhood, because we couldn't change anything, we bite back, right? Because hurting people hurt others. Suddenly now we're the villain. So it's just it's a massive oversimplification of reality and not a particularly useful model. It's one of the models that almost everybody adopts in Western culture, and it's probably one of the most damaging.
Connects you spiritually versus separates you spiritually. OG LGBT going inward for the revelation of who they truly are is a spiritual pursuit. Now, you may not agree with me, that's cool, but that's how I see it. Inner work is an inner journey, and the inner journey is the spiritual path. It takes emotional discovery, self excavation, and contending with the shadow, bringing it to light. All things that one goes through during the arduous journey of self discovery inherently connects you to the spiritual and raises your conscious awareness. Modern LGBT separates you from spirituality. Sure, they talk about meditation and crystals, but what are you really learning about yourself if you can't look at it? Instead of uncovering your shadow and bringing it to light, you are instead overrun by your shadow, which results in reactivity. Most knee jerk reactions come from your uncovered shadow. And if you don't uncover it, then you can't choose your response. You're running on autopilot, which is a large facet of being a man divided, because your mind is not whole. You are not walking the spiritual path at all. Instead, you are on an ego trip. That's what spiritual bypassing is. You're using spirituality as an excuse to escape yourself and feed your ego. And that's why so many people in the TQ plus are so egotistical. Why swept up in the madness? I truly think there's such a sadness today. The LGBT movement, once it achieved its goal of the right to marry who they love, had been co-opted, infiltrated, and destroyed from the inside by people and energies who were not stable. I think that the LGBT movement gave these people a life, a sense of purpose, some kind of meaning, because without it, once it was taken away, they had nothing. They had nothing because they were not in the movement to find and express themselves like the LGB were. They were there for the cause, the blind unity, riding the wave that would put some kind of meaning into their life because they don't know how to do it themselves. And for people hell bent on not seeing themselves, they will not start that journey once the movement's over. Instead, they look to the next wave of fanaticism to carry them through life. This was a very ripe stage for manipulative forces to pull these hopeless people into. I'd like to read you an excerpt from a book called The True Believer by Eric Hoffer. A rising mass movement attracts and holds a following not by its doctrine and promises, but by the refuge it offers from the anxieties, barrenness, and the meaninglessness of an individual existence. It cures the poignantly frustrated not by conferring on them an absolute truth or by remedying the difficulties and abuses which made their lives miserable, but by freeing them from their ineffectual selves. And it does this by enfolding and absorbing them into a closely knit and exultant corporate whole. This first excerpt is basically talking about if you aren't grounded in yourself and you don't actually know who you are, and in fact are trying to avoid who you are, then you are going to jump on any kind of mass bandwagon. And this book goes over multiple examples throughout history of how this happens, because it's not really about the trans, it's just about the movement. Here's another excerpt. A minority is in a precarious position, however protected it be by law or force. The frustration engendered by the unavoidable sense of insecurity is less intense in a minority intent on preserving its identity than in one bent upon dissolving in and blending with the masses, the majority. A minority which preserves its identity is inevitably a compact whole which shelters the individual, gives him a sense of belonging, and immunizes him against frustration. On the other hand, in a minority bent on assimilation, the individual stands alone, pitted against prejudice and discrimination. He is also burdened with a sense of guilt, however vague, of a renegade. The Orthodox Jew is less frustrated than the emancipated Jew. The segregated Negro in the South is less frustrated than the non-segregated Negro in the North. That book was written in 1958, so sorry for the Negro. However, I wanted to grab those excerpts from there because I wanted to just showcase how evergreen this kind of content is, in terms of, how people get swept away in mass movements. This phenomenon is not new. It's just now it's under the trans flavor, and it seems to be headed towards a Palestine flavor now, or a pro-Muslim flavor somehow. It's really interesting, and so this book helps you kind of see those patterns, and therefore it's less of a surprise to see where this wave starts going. you know um, I think for the sane mind, you think like, okay, this is just one situation, and if there's anything else coming, it's going to be, related, but it's not. It has nothing to do with the trans. It has nothing to do with the actual idea or the pursuit. It's just all about the movement. So this is a great book to enlighten you on that. Gives you a lot of thoughts to chew on. To take this point even further, who is driving that energy? Who started all of this for others to be enticed in the first place? What's next are some of my spiritual beliefs. There are collective entities that drive behavior. And if you are not a self-aware person, at least at some level, then you are easily swept up in any frenetic movement. The movement can change, but the energy is the same. The entities that feed off that energy are the same. The OG LGBT group were part of a larger spiritual journey. Whether they considered it as that or not, it was a road that led to their highest potential, a great milestone in the flow of life. Because any movement that is advocating for self-realization is a threat to dark forces on this planet who want to control you. There are dark forces on this planet looking to stunt growth and trap people at whatever spiritual level they are, to not have you grow. I think this collective energy, call it a demon if you like, targeted this movement specifically because of how it would raise the conscious awareness of the whole. It was too inspiring a force for others to know themselves wholeheartedly, to throw the mask off gender roles, and to be whole people, no matter if you were homosexual or heterosexual. It was becoming much more common to engage in self awareness, which inevitably leads you to God. This modern LGBT movement, on the other hand, feeds off confusion. Gender ideology is confusing by design and always moves the goalposts so that you stay trapped in it. You don't know what's going on, and at any moment, you can be outcasted for not keeping up. It's a game of power and control through chaos. The rhetoric must create uncertainty, for if you finally find a stasis, a stable sense of who you are, the second you find a rock to stand on, you are no longer controllable. That's why everything is fluid and can change at a moment's notice. And it's through people completely unwilling to look at themselves that are willing to allow their identities to be so frivolously dictated by the external. That's the only way this could work. This modern LGBT movement is feeding into these entities with chaos and confusion. And they also feed to the entities our frustration.
There are manipulators at all four levels of the physical spectrum or the material world. So I've talked about the physical level of vibration, the emotional, the mental, and the identity level. And at the physical level, as I said, they want to get followers, they want to appear superior. But there are also manipulators who are at such a low level of consciousness that they are not allowed to take physical embodiment on Earth. But they can exist still for some time in one of the higher levels. And in the emotional level, they primarily want power or they want to create chaos. At the mental level, they want to be intellectually superior. So they want to create all of these, they even create ideologies, theories, religions, that make them seem superior and that confuse people. That they either get people to believe in certain lies, or they get people to become totally confused because they don't know what to believe. But ideally, what a manipulator at the mental level wants is to get people to believe in the lies that this manipulator has created and follow them blindly, believe that this is the truth. Then at the identity level, you have manipulators who have a bigger agenda of proving something. And some of them literally want to prove God wrong. They want to prove that God was wrong for giving us free will, by getting people to abuse their free will, often by getting people to fight on one of these epic causes, like Hitler, the epic cause of purifying the human race by destroying all the inferior people, and many other causes like the world communism or whatever it may be. So as a person who is growing towards higher levels of awareness, it's important to realize this, because the overall goal of all of these manipulators is to pull you into something so that you are not growing beyond a certain level. They want to stop your growth at a certain level.
Was it an agenda? I heard about the trans agenda from conspiracy websites back when I was in college. I at first called it bullshit, and later on I found myself pulled into the fervor. I caped for trans people so hard that I even argued at the top of my lungs with my then boyfriend about how trans people weren't just men in skirts. And I did this with not a single trans person in sight. I didn't even have a single trans friend to my name. I don't quite remember when I snapped out of it, but I do think it was either right at or just before the time of the whole J.K. Rowling fiasco. I had actually read her letter, by the way, and it was beautiful. Jeffrey Epstein. As you guys probably know by now, the Epstein files include talks of transness. In one, Robert Driver says to Jeffrey Epstein, "By the way, we are now pushing the intervention earlier. So you notice your 3-year-old son has trans tendencies, so now you intervene with hormones. I would be frightened to do that, but who knows?" Guys, we are pushing the intervention earlier. Is this not being an agent of manipulation? I'm sorry, y'all, but this is not a stretch. It's clear as day to me. And like I said, I've seen some of this stuff on conspiracy sites before too. So that really wasn't the first time they told on themselves. Uh, it's just, yeah. Here's how this has happened. Targeting children. I'm sure we've all seen the influence of transing propaganda thrown at our kids without parental consent. They do drag shows in schools, include sexually graphic books in elementary school libraries, and expose children to sexual content at a very young age. They say Pride is a family friendly event while having men completely exposed parading on the streets. This is what pedophiles like Epstein love to see, the desecration of innocence. And children are the most innocent in this world. Targeting autistic kids. It's not just about children as a whole. They're also targeting autistic kids in a specific way due to the way we, I say we because I myself am autistic, think in a black and white manner. Overall, autistic kids are quite gullible to certain ideologies, especially when we are so desperately trying to fit in, mask, and people please our way into acceptance.
And then the link between trans and neurodiversity, what I found is that the people who were actually believing that they were the wrong sex, not the transvestites, not the AGPs, but the ones who believed they're the wrong sex, were, from my experience, the males were 100% neurodiverse. The females were a mixture between neurodiverse trauma and internal lesbophobia. But they had a very rigid black and white mindset, very inflexible, not able to be subversive like a punk can, but they have very definite rule-abiding behaviour. They don't have the theory of mind to be able to envisage that someone else might not see them as a woman if they're wearing long dresses, long hair and makeup. They have autistic meltdowns when you don't get their pronouns correct. And the thing about pronouns is really interesting because the pronoun isn't just a word. Because the autistic person struggles to know what you think in relation to them, if you use the pronoun that they want you to use, that means you really believe that they are the new sex. So you misgendering them, calling them referring to them as their biological sex, isn't just a careless mistake. It means, gosh, you don't really see me as the new gender I want to be. So that's why the massive importance on pronouns. You must use my pronouns because that means you really believe that I am the sex I want to be, rather than it's just a word. So that's a very autistic thing. And then you get the autistic meltdown when you're not using the correct pronouns. So there's a massive overlap with what we used to call true transsexualism and autism, but not in the transvestites and not in the autogynephiles and not in the ROGD kids who were just goth Mark 5, I'd say.
Guys, this is not infantilizing autistic people. Quite the opposite. It's not that autistic people can't help themselves but fall into this trap. It's that they're exploiting a long held struggle that autistic people have had, and they're filling that void with something sinister that on the surface looks innocent, loving, and welcoming. This is manipulation. And that's what demons do. And I do believe that there is a very specific reason for it. And I'm going to extrapolate on that in another video because otherwise this one will be very long. In the meantime, I would highly recommend watching an interview between Stephanie Wynn and Simon Amaya Price regarding this specific thing about how autistic kids are being drawn into this trans movement.
And that's why understanding the overlap between autism and gender dysphoria is so incredibly important. When autistic traits go unrecognized, young people search for explanations. Autistic youth are well known to deconstruct computers, to understand how every single part works, to understand then how the whole works. So of course, when prompted, they too will deconstruct gender. And if they do not receive an accurate explanation of their differences, they will search insistently, persistently, and consistently until they find one that fits. For many kids today, the framework they find is gender identity. Girls on the autism spectrum are known for camouflaging or masking their autistic traits well enough to evade diagnosis. I believe that for many girls, the trans mask identity becomes yet another mask for an autistic girl to wear. Autism in girls is still sorely underdiagnosed, and far too often, those years of misunderstood distress and unmet needs are being treated with gender transition. In other words, gender clinicians are trying to treat autism with gender transition, and that is unconscionable.
Isolation of COVID-19. If autism makes a person feel isolated and unable to connect with others, what more than a true isolating event like COVID-19? That manufactured plague impacted our young generations in an intense and seemingly irreversible way. With all that time on their hands and their physical distance from their friends, we now have one of the largest epidemics of loneliness the world has ever seen. We have so many kids lacking basic social skills. Part of why so many kids are also showing quote unquote autistic traits, it's a lack of social skills due to this crazy pandemic, which leads into the loneliness epidemic. The dichotomous us versus them mindset underlines the entire ideology of the trans movement. But ironically, this further distances people. We now live in a world where interacting with others is an all or nothing pursuit. Either you do everything right and believe in all the right things, or we can't be friends. She says she doesn't think racism actually exists. Why would you tolerate a Nazi? There's no nuance anymore and no true room for diversity, particularly diversity of thought. And in this, you have unsurmountable standards that you must overcome just to become one person's friend. We are in such a state of separation right now. Everyone is so far from each other, and there seems to be no unifying factor to have us come together despite our differences. Divide and conquer anyone? Parental rights. And finally, family has been usurped. I myself don't particularly care about the nuclear family, whether someone has both mother and father. They may be raised by a single mom or dad, raised by their grandparents, uncle, whatever. What I'm talking about is the structure of family. That there is a stable place that you go back to, a home base that you return to after you ventured out into the crazy, chaotic world to say, this was my day, this is what I've seen, this is how I feel about it. What do you think? Any advice? And in return, you get a loving guidance who advises you, warns you, gives you options about how you can respond. And you are then equipped to go back into that crazy world with the stable foundation you needed so that it doesn't sway you. You have the guidance to help you form yourself within this world so that the chaos of it doesn't throw you off kilter. You are a house on the rock, not the house built on sand. That is what parenting is supposed to be. And when you now have a society that alienated the parents, even if they're physically there and trying to advise you, those forces convince you that your parents don't know what's best for you. And then in other cases, it's the parents themselves who throw their children into the chaos with no help, to enforce their own ego. Those parents are the kinds of parents who sacrifice their children to Moloch, to demons, to the devil. They may even force their children to transition before they've even hit puberty, and they post it online for all to see. And the parents that are honest, who truly want to see their kids grow up in a normal way, those parents are vilified. That's on purpose. If parental rights can be taken away, your children have no defense against the chaos, and that is exactly what the dark forces on this planet want. The discomfort of puberty. I think that puberty is being weaponized against children as an excuse for them to transition. It seems like many kids, when starting to worry about body changes, instead of getting the guidance they need, get encouraged to transition when they don't feel right in their bodies. Something that is so normal for all children going through puberty. And to deliberately refuse the guidance of their elders, whether it be parents, an aunt, what have you, is to do a great disservice to children in their vulnerable years.
And that's where the irony starts to show. When young men are changing their bodies through looks maxing and are trying to change their lives, their self-esteem, the narrative is it's cringe, that they don't understand the consequences. They're not thinking straight. They're only thinking about the short-term outcome. And they're inspiring others to do the same harmful things. But when irreversible medical things happens to children's bodies, the narrative is it must be blindly supported because it helps them live a better life. Same logic, same justification. Change your body to feel better about yourself, to live a better life, and become who you believe you're meant to be. Yet one is condemned as self-destructive, and the other is defended as stunning and brave, and most importantly, necessary. The more I looked into this topic, the more similarities I found between looks maxing and the pro-child transition advocacy.
I believe this whole fiasco was a plot of the dark forces, negative entities, the devil, whatever you want to call it, to drain the energy of the population, bastardize God's creation, infiltrate it with ugliness, and it's only one way in which they are influencing this planet. And it's a way in which affects me very deeply because it's the loss of my dating pool. All those aspects of the OG LGBT are what I find attractive in people. I truly think it's a spiritual thing. The fact that any tiny diversion from traditional gender norms is then said to be that you're some kind of trans makes me incredibly disappointed. No matter who I date, I want them to be confident and self-assured because those are factors that not only make a great person, but they also make a great relationship. But if you're coming into it already running from yourself and relying on external validation to function, that's not an equal relationship to me. Plus, androgynous men and women used to be so sexy. Yet now, if I see one, first of all, they're not cute like they used to be. And second, I know that 9 times out of 10, they consider themselves trans. There's an ugliness that's become pervasive in society. I'm being hyperbolic, but like literally, no one's attractive anymore. I don't know when subverting gender norms became, let's be as ugly as possible, but please stop it. And I'm not just talking about what's on the surface. I'm also talking about people's hearts. Start being real. It's so much better, I promise.
Are you feminine? Do you like being masculine?
I like being both, actually. I mean, I'm a lot. It's not being masculine. It's an attitude, really. Being masculine, what is that? I mean, can you tell me what is being masculine? I mean, I think that I just act the way I feel, and I've always felt a lot of the male of my family influence in the attitude. I mean, I lived with males all my life, whether it was my father or my grandfather or brothers, and we all rub off on each other.
Does that carry through to your sexual preference?
Well, that depends.
Or do you find women attractive?
I find women attractive. I think if I didn't, I wouldn't find myself attractive. I think one has to begin first with themselves and then go from there. And for me to say I don't find women attractive would be saying that I don't find myself attractive.
Does that make you bisexual?
It doesn't make me anything. I think it's ridiculous trying to categorize people's feelings or saying what does one prefer. There's no comparison. You can't just say one's better than the other or one's worse than the other. I prefer one to the other. It's just do what you feel when you feel like it, if you feel like it.
Real androgyny. As a 90s kid, I'm realizing that when I use the word androgyny, like while I'm including the kinds of people where like if you look at their face, you're not quite sure if they're a man or a woman. You know what I mean? They have like a man could have such soft physical features that you're just like, you have to kind of squint. You're like, oh wait, or similar for a woman. I'm including them for sure. However, I'm noticing too, like in my head when I'm looking at my ideas, it's more than that. It's also about how you dress, how you present yourself. You could obviously be a man and have a beard and be wearing a skirt or a dress. And it's just like, I don't know. My generation did it different, y'all. Like it was done in a way that looked natural. Like they would choose things that actually suited them. You didn't just slap it on and call it, gender neutral, or we're going beyond, transcending gender. Like, no, you just felt yourself, bro. Like, I don't know how else to explain it. Here's some definitions. I threw it into an LLM and, kind of got a general view. And I'm kind of seeing this difference here. So in 1990s, it was the aesthetic of subversion, right? Androgyny in the 90s, androgyny was primarily viewed through the lens of fashion, performance, and rebellion. It was often treated as a look or a stylistic choice used to challenge traditional gender norms. The 90s saw the rise of the unisex clothing style. This usually meant a leaning towards the masculine, baggy jeans, oversized flannels, and combat boots that both men and women wore. And I see this. I see, like how Prince and Bowie challenged gender norms, gender bending as a performance and whatnot, And yeah, people just started wearing whatever the fuck they wanted. It was already fine. But now it's like androgyny today, right, is all baked into the language of identity, which just makes it like removes the human almost. It's like you've become an alien. So there's this part, it's talking about deconstruction, not just blending. Today's androgyny isn't just about putting on a dress on a man or a suit on a woman. It's about the deconstruction of gender markers entirely. This is seen in the rise of genderless fashion lines that ignore traditional sizing and cuts altogether. So what you're saying is that a lot of this genderless fashion that ignores traditional sizing and cuts together, you're just not appreciating the body anymore. Like you're hiding the body. Every once in a while, I'll see some, Gen Zer that is dressed pretty cute. You know what I mean? And I'm like, oh, you're so cute. They're like, oh yeah, I'm gender neutral, or I'm gender queer, or I'm agender. And I'm just like, you're just a cute girl. You can just say that. It's okay. It's just so different. Let me show you. Okay, this first picture is of this man with this luscious curly hair. Oh my goodness. Like, if you saw him from the back, you'd be like, excuse me, ma'am. You know what I'm saying? Like, that is what I'm talking about. Listen, I don't know. Like, you can see clearly that he's a man. You know what I'm saying? But he's embracing the hair. Like, what can I say? You can tell he actually like does it, and I love it. All right, let's see a comparison with what you might see today. Here it is, and can you just feel the energy? Like, it's just a different shift. I just feel like, this is just me. I think the left one is very natural and the other one is very fake, very manufactured. Like, you don't have to manufacture yourself to transcend gender. You don't have to be fake to be agender or trans or whatever. I don't know. Like, to be fair, I don't know exactly what the guy on the right is trying to achieve with that look. Maybe he's about to do some drag. It's like soft drag. That's what it is. It's soft drag. And you're trying to make it public, I guess, instead of keeping it to the club. So this next one, listen, homeboy is rocking the heels. Come on. Like, you can see that it's a man, but he's an androgynous man to me. Like, his facial features are very soft and feminine to me. Like, I don't know. He's rocking it. You can tell he's comfortable. He about to go out. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's just awesome. Okay, let's see a comparison. So here's modern LGBT. I just don't feel the vibe. Like, I can tell that this guy is trying to feel comfortable. Of course, I'm probably offending him by saying this guy, listen, I'm trying to transcend gender norms. But my guy on the left is doing that way better. I'm sorry. It's different. It's just a different vibe. I do have to say, there was no way for me to confirm where these two guys are from generation wise. I don't know if the left dude is a millennial or not. And I don't really, I'm pretty sure that the guy on the right is more Gen Z, but that's okay. I don't know if these people actually are calling themselves trans or genderqueer or whatever. I'm literally just basing it on vibe because I had the pictures that I had. It seems like history is getting deleted. I could not find like back in the day photos. Maybe I need to do more research. I don't know, but this is what I have. Okay, guys, this is all I got. So I found the pictures I found and I'm just basing it on vibe, how I see them posing and whatnot. Do they feel comfortable? Do they look comfortable? Does the outfit suit the person? Yeah, guy on the left is rocking it, gotta say. And the one on the right is trying. That's what I see. Sorry, guys. All right, so let's look at another one. Oh my gosh, look at those arms. This girl, she is so cute. I miss my studs. They probably still out there. You know what I'm saying? But they just kind of, they've been called turf. I'm so sorry for y'all. Oh my God, I miss you. I miss these girls. Oh my God, I miss my studs. Oh, she's so cute. Okay, let's look at a modern example. Okay, so you're attempting, this is the thing. You're attempting to look like a man on the top. Yeah, I see the beard and stuff, but your face is still soft. So there's that uncanny valley situation going on. So you're not really, you are doing what you say you are. You're transcending the binary, right? By pulling the binary into you. Like, you're just trying to flip, right? Like, hey guys, I'm a guy on the top and a lady in the middle. You know what I mean? Like, at this point, like, why are you changing your body to do this? Why are you changing your body to do this? You know what? Let me put another stud picture next to this one. Hold on. Here's another stud next to this one. Similar outfits, okay? I'm trying to make this as fair as possible. Now, this girl on the left, like, oh my God, just... everything. Like, she's confident, she's comfortable, you know what I'm saying? And it, like, homie on the right just don't look comfortable. Like, oh my gosh, it's like I just made myself look weird and now I'm trying to pose. I don't know. I feel a different energy. Maybe it's just too slight for some people to see the difference. Like, maybe some people celebrate the one on the right more than the one on the left. I don't know. But to me, oh my God, like the left is just natural. It's just natural. Like, you're still subverting gender norms, okay? But you're doing it in a way that respects your body. All right, so here's a guy that is completely comfortable. He's wearing makeup, he's got his hair up, you know what I'm saying? And it's just homey. It's just homey eye makeup. You know what I'm saying? Like, this is just me, bro. Like, what you mean? That's the vibe I'm getting from this photo right here. Let's see kind of a modern example of someone, trying to do some feminine stuff. All right, so here's this guy with a beard, long hair. I mean, ultimately, it's very similar to the picture on the left, right? Like, he's doing the same thing, quote unquote, except you can tell that the guy on the right is completely uncomfortable. I'm sorry, just that's the vibe I'm getting. He's not settled in himself. He's not homey. He's not homey. He's trying. Trans tried it. That's what I named this picture. Trans tried it. He's trying. This makes me wonder. I'm just like, maybe it's that this new generation, the generation today, Gen Zers, maybe even a little Gen A, maybe growing up as iPad kids, you just don't know how to be real or authentic or comfortable. I'm not sure. It's just homeboy on the right, it's like he's dressing up. He put the dress on to dress up. I'm not sure if it's a dress. It could just be a top, but yeah, it's not much. So I'm just, like I said, I'm trying to be as fair as possible. It's not much that he has on. I'm not picking the obviously super colorful, candy, candy gen, so I am trying to be as fair as possible with these comparisons. And yeah, I just see left as comfortable and homey and the right as just not. Okay, let's do some more ladies. All right, so here's homegirl. Oh my God. Yes. Her outfit is everything. Her outfit is everything. I'm so in love with this photo. Okay, now let's do a modern example. All right, so here is a trans person that has just got top surgery. I mean, the girl on the left, imagine if she said, actually, I'm a man. I'm going to cut my boobs off and start taking testosterone. Oh my God, that would just, in my opinion, that would ruin it. The girl on the right, oh my God. It hurts my heart, actually. It hurts my heart. Imagine if she styled it up like homie on the left. You know what I'm saying? I feel, my personal opinion, she would be much cuter. It makes her look, I can't even describe it. It just makes her look, I don't know. All right, let's look at my homie right here. Yes, come on. Yes, rock that style. I'm telling you. You know what I'm saying? I just love the outfit that he's wearing. I love that he is clearly confident in it. I see it. I see what he's doing. You know what I'm saying? Okay, let's look at a modern example. Boy, why are you stealing your grandma's clothes? Give your grandmama her clothes back. I'm sorry. It's not. Just look at their faces. Just look at their faces. Look at the expression on the man on the left and look at the expression, even the shoulders, just the shoulders. Just look at their shoulders. Can you tell the difference? They're doing, quote unquote, the same thing. Right? All right, y'all, this is my last one. All right, here's Homegirl. In my opinion, very gorgeous, very comfortable. I love the outfit. I'm loving everything. You know what I'm saying? Like the fit, it's natural. And let's do a modern example. Okay, you do got some pink hair here. But you know what? This particular person looks pretty comfortable too, I will say. Whatever, I hope it's a she. I want to say she. But they're probably a they. You know what I'm saying? And I think that's what kind of ruins it to me. It's like you can just be a she and be cute. But, however, this person, she does look comfortable. I will say that. One of the only actually comfortable pictures I've seen when it comes to genderqueer, non-binary, trans, whatever. Like, yeah. So I actually do like her style on the right. Pink hair, don't care, all good. You know what I'm saying? These two people are cute. All right. So maybe Gen Zers will end up doing the same thing as millennials when it comes to subverting gender roles. They're just taking a very long, arduous, and very bodily harmful way of getting there. I don't know. Maybe y'all are just taking the roundabout when there was a straight path and you just didn't know because social media brainwashed you. I don't know, girl. Like, what? I hope y'all can see and feel the difference. In conclusion, I miss the days where girls could be masculine and not be ashamed for it. I miss the days when men were getting bolder, donning makeup, skirts, nail polish, and the like, while still being able to stand their ground and say, yeah, I'm a man. This creates a confidence that shows in your appearance, your dress, your mannerisms. You wear things that actually suit you. You speak like yourself. It completely affects your attraction. People who cannot accept themselves for who they are, so they therefore hide under labels and lots of colorful language, isn't attractive to me at all. It seems that deep down, there's a powerful self-hate, and it's proven by the reactionary responses that people like this are known for. I don't think that's by accident. I think it's by sinister design. It seems my ideal dating pool is all but disappeared into the alphabet soup, and the fawning over men's rights disguised as an LGBT movement. It was a destructive force, a consuming force, a demonic force that stripped everything good and healthy from the movement. And now I would love to invite the world back, revitalize that bygone era. I would love to see true self-expression back on this planet, true authenticity, true love for oneself. I miss it and I want it back. That's how I feel. Ma, 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 ma.